स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य।
Good morning everyone. On behalf of the Millennium School, I would like to congratulate all the parents and their children on Virasat 2021. So thank you parents for cooperating and giving your support for all the projects that you have made for social science in this pandemic. Congratulations to all the participants and wishing you good luck. Thank you.
Warm greetings everyone. I Amanat, the student of class 9th of the Millennium School Bathinda, welcome everyone to a virtual social science exhibition. This art exhibition is extra special for us because it is the entirely efforts of our students, and they are not experts but are rather at a learning stage. I am glad that our school is encouraging its students in the discipline, as there is a lot of hidden talent in our students. Let's explore. History is a topic of interest to many, including foreigners, because of the cultures and civilizations existed in this subcontinent. History of India can be studied under political, cultural, religious or economic heads. Chronologically, Indian history can be classified into three periods: ancient India, medieval India, modern India. Let's know more about these periods from our students.
The history of India begins with the birth of the Indus Valley Civilization, also known as Harappan Civilization. It flourished around 2500 BC in the western part of South Asia, what today is Pakistan and Western India. The Indus Valley was home to the largest of the four ancient urban civilizations of Egypt, Mesopotamia, India and China. The ruins of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa showed that these were magnificent merchant cities, well planned, scientifically laid and well looked after. The Vedic civilization flourished along the river Saraswati in a region that now consists of the modern states of Haryana and Punjab. The Ramayana and Mahabharata were the two great epics of this period. During the lifetime of Lord Gautam Buddha, 16 great powers known as Mahajanpadas existed in the 7th and early 6th century BC. Among the more important republics were the Sakyas of Kapilavastu and the Lucchavis of Vaishali. Besides the republics, there were monarchical states, among which important ones were Kaushambi, Magadha, Kosala and Avanti. In 326 BC, Alexander invaded India. After crossing the river Indus, he advanced towards Takshila. He then challenged King Porus, ruler of the kingdom between the rivers Jhelum and Chenab. The death of Alexander gave Chandragupta Maurya an opportunity to liberate the countries from the yoke of the Greeks and thus occupy the provinces of Punjab and Sindh. The period of the Mauryan Empire marked a new epoch in the history of India. It was a period when politics, art, trade and commerce elevated India to a glorious height. Ashoka emerged not only as the famous king of the Maurya dynasty, but is also regarded as one of the greatest kings of India and the world. Ashoka was succeeded by weak rulers, which encouraged the provinces to proclaim their independence. In the beginning of the 1st century AD, the Kushanas established their authority over the northwest frontier of India. After the Kushanas, the Guptas were the most important dynasty. The Gupta period has been described as the golden age of Indian history. The first famous king of the Gupta dynasty was Chandragupta I. He got the title of Maharaja Dhiraj and ruled for about 15 years. With the commencement of the 7th century, Harshvardhana ascended the throne of Thaneshwar and Kannauj. The Chinese traveller Hien San, who visited India during his reign, has given a vivid description of the social, economic and religious conditions. The ancient history of India has seen the rise and downfall of several dynasties, which have left their legacies still resounding in the golden book of Indian history. With the end of the 9th century AD, the medieval history of India started with the rise of numerous empires.
My topic is medieval history. Medieval Indian history went for almost the whole centuries under the so-called indigenous rulers that included the Chalukyas, the Pallavas, the Pandyas, the Rashtrakutas, the Muslim rulers, and finally the Mughal Empire. The most important dynasty to emerge in the middle of 9th century was that of the Cholas. Between 8th and 10th centuries AD, a number of powerful empires dominated the eastern and northern parts of India. After the decline of Palas, the Sena dynasty established its rule in Bengal. The dynasty, which ruled from Karnataka, is illustrious for several reasons. They were the Rashtrakutas, the great patrons of art and literature. Chola dynasty finally came to an end with the invasion of Malik Kafur in the early 14th century AD. The initial entry of Islam into South Asia came in the 1st century after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. 300 years after his death, Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni, a ferocious leader, led a series of raids against Rajput kingdoms and rich Hindu temples and established a base in Punjab for future incursions. Muhammad Ghori invaded India in 1175 AD. The brave Rajput chiefs of northern India, headed by Prithviraj Chauhan, defeated him in the first battle of the reign in 1191 AD. A furious battle was fought again in Tarrain in 1192 AD, in which the Rajputs were defeated and Prithviraj Chauhan was captured and put to death. The second battle of the reign, however, proved to be a decisive battle that laid the foundations of the Muslim rule in northern India. The periods between 1206 AD and 1526 AD in India's history is known as the Delhi Sultanate period. During this period of over 300 years, 5 dynasties ruled in India. These were the Slave dynasty, the Khilji dynasty, the Tughlaq dynasty, the Sayyid dynasty, and the Lodi dynasty. An important Mughal empire was one of the greatest empires ever. India became united under one rule and had very prosperous culture and political years during the Mughal rule. Under Babur, Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, and Aurangzeb, the Mughal empire reached its peaks in matter of area. Chhatrapati Shivaji, the great Maratha hero, established the Maratha Empire in the Deccan, fighting powerful Mughals who were ruling India then. He motivated and combined the common man to fight against the domination of the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb by inculcating wisdom of pride and nationality in them. The Mughal Empire started disintegrating with the death of Aurangzeb in 1707. The imperial dynasty became extinct with Bahadur Shah II, who was deported to Rangoon by the British on suspicion of assisting the sepoy militias. This marked the end of the medieval era of Indian history, and gradually the British paramountcy over the nation increased and gave birth to the Indian struggle for freedom. Thank you.
My topic is contemporary history. The Britishers came and ruled over India for nearly 200 years. After the Battle of Plassey in 1757, the British achieved political power in India. The British power gained its height during the middle of 19th century. During this period, the discontent of local rulers, the peasantry, the intellectuals, common masses became widespread. They soon broke out into a revolt, which assumed the dimensions of 1857 mutiny. The people of India as such did not have any say in running the government or formulation of its policies. Consequently, the people's disgust with British rule kept mounting, which gave rise to the birth of Indian national movement. The leadership of freedom passed into the hands of reformists like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Bankim Chandra, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. During this time-binding psychological concept of national unity also formed in the fire of struggle against common foreign oppressor. The foundations of Indian national movement were laid by Surendranath Banerjee with the formation of Indian Association at Calcutta in 1876. After the First World War, 1914 to 1918, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi became the undisputed leader of Congress. New leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose also emerged on the scene and advocated the adoption of complete independence as the goal of national movement. The non-cooperation movement was pitched in under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi and the Indian National Congress from September to 1920 to February 1922, marking the new awakening in the Indian independence movement. This movement almost shook the British authorities. Mahatma Gandhi led the civil disobedience movement that was launched in the Congress session of December 1929. During this time, Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev and Rajguru were arrested on the charges of throwing a bomb on the Central Assembly Hall, which is now the Lok Sabha in Delhi, to demonstrate against the authoritarian alien rule. They were hanged to death on March 23, 1931. Meanwhile, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who stealthily ran away from the British detention in Calcutta, reached foreign lands and organized the Indian National Army to overthrow the British from India. "Give me blood and I shall give you freedom" was one of the most popular statements made by him, where he urges the people of India to join him in his freedom movement. Thus, India became free at the stroke of midnight on August 14, 1947. Since then, every year India celebrates its independence on 15th August. A Constituent Assembly was formed in July 1946 to frame the Constitution of India, and Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as President. The Constitution of India was adopted by the Constituent Assembly on 26 November 1949 and executed on January 26, 1950. The Constitution came into force. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear friends, for sharing this valuable information. As the name suggests, social science is concerned about society. It aims at understanding all aspects of society as well as finding solutions to deal with the social problems. During the pandemic, we all are able to live safely from COVID-19 only due to COVID warriors. These warriors are risking their own life to protect the public and keep us safe.
Hello everyone, I am Mehar from class 7B. Today we are talking about conquering the disaster with Corona warriors. The 2019 to 2020 coronavirus pandemic is upending life on a global level as we know it. During the pandemic, on one hand, people across India and around the world are largely confined to their homes. Their businesses and all educational institutions shut down in an attempt to contain the virus. But on the other hand, doctors, healthcare workers and medical staff members, school managements, teachers, our police force sweepers are leading the battle against COVID-19 from the front, putting their own lives at risk with selfless determination for the sake of saving lives. They are truly our heroes in these challenging times. Needless to say, doctors, nurses and people working in healthcare sectors are particularly vulnerable to the highly infectious disease. We cannot repay them for their vulnerable support as our frontline heroes. We could conquer this COVID-19 disaster with the contribution of these warriors. So let's pray for their long life and success.
Stopping a pandemic requires using all tools we have available. Vaccines work with our immune system, so it will be ready to fight virus if you are exposed.
Hello dear Namat, how are you?
Hello Paranjay, I'm fine. What about you?
I am also fine. What happened Namat? Why are you looking so sad today?
Nothing Paranjay. Actually, I love my grandmother very much. I want to protect her from this deadly disease, but she doesn't want to get herself vaccinated.
Oh, it's really sad. You must tell her the importance of vaccine. She will surely agree. This is our responsibility to make our parents and grandparents aware about it. You know, a few days back, I, myself, took my granny to the vaccination center to get her vaccinated.
Wow, that's a great idea. I should also do that. I think this is the only way I can go. She will never refuse me.
So, dear friends, if your parents and grandparents do not want to go for vaccination, tell them the importance of it. Gently hold their hands and take them to the world of better immunity.
Remember, vaccines are safe, protects us from diseases.
Today I'm gonna tell you that how Mother Nature has healed itself during the lockdown. In the year 2020, the earth stood still. At least it felt that way. COVID-19 brought the entire countries to a standstill, with huge sections of global population to kept indoors in an effort to curb the pandemic. The respite of lockdown has given us a special glimpse at a world which once was quieter, cleaner, and more obviously full of nature. People have been tweeting several images and videos of witnessing wild animals on their streets. These animals are seldom seen in public as they mostly reside in jungles and woods. A Nile gaze, sambar, a peacock, a rhinoceros, dolphins, and flamingos were spotted in various parts of the country. The Himalayas were visible from a range of 125 miles in India after 30 years. It has made us see that our actions can very well impact the earth's sustainability. Can we waste a little bit less water? Can we use a little bit less paper? Can we walk and cycle a bit more and drive a little less? Can't we recycle? Be more responsible tourists and don't throw garbage in the water bodies or on the roads. Yes, we all can play our parts, assume our responsibilities and do our bits. Our small acts will add up to sustain the world that is created now.
In the time of crisis, our school management is at forefront of pandemic learning. It is like a genie that is out of the bottle, and I don't think you can get it back in.
I would like to stand up and applaud and thank my school. I wholeheartedly appreciate the initiative taken by TMSB regarding online classes to enable learning during this hard time for us. Apart from academics, my school also took initiative in organizing various competitions like Igniting Mind Quiz, Shakespeare Evening Quiz, etc. along with the Health Go program, which is continuously diagnosing health of the students. These all things really worth appreciation. My school TMSB has created an environment of enthusiasm for learning, appreciation and motivation and provide us a room of confidence. Thank you TMSB for supporting in hard times.
Hello, I am Garima Singla, Ranveer Singla's mother, who studies in 7th, 8th, and this is regarding feedback for the online classes. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Principal Ma'am and all the teachers for online classes during this pandemic. The experience has been great so far. We have all the subject teachers working so hard day and night to explain the kids so well, with so much of patience and effort, without going tired. I think it is remarkable to see every day the amount of hard work goes in, how all the teachers work diligently towards each and every child. I really thanks all the teachers for their amazing dedicated contribution in these hard times and admire them from my heart. Thank you so much, TMSB.
Hello everyone, myself Dr. Rajni Jindal Garg, mother of Tanvi Garg of class 7th A, studying in the Millennium School, Bhatinda. During the pandemic, the teachers and the academic staff are doing very hard work and keeping the students busy in various activities, virtual exhibitions and assemblies. The whole team of the TMSB is very cooperative with the parents and I really appreciate them for their hard work. Thank you.
Myself Sukhjeevan Brad, mother of Tejeshwar Singh Brad. As a parent, I really feel proud to be associated with the enthusiastic and dynamic team of the Millennium School, Bhatinda. I really appreciate the efforts of the teachers who have organized virtual social science exhibition. It is not very easy to organize such exhibitions on virtual platform, but the hard-working TMSB staff has proved that they will not leave any stone unturned to groom our children. The initiatives taken by the school, especially during the pandemic, are really innovative and commendable. We are thankful to the principal and the dedicated staff who has focused on the holistic development of the students. Thank you.
Proud to be a millenniumite. A model is a vision visual aid or picture which highlights the main ideas and variables in a process or a system. An exhibition is incomplete without the presentation of models, as they provide an environment for interactive student engagement. Our talented students are now going to present different models in their own way.
Definition of Indian Constitution. A constitution is a document containing laws and rules. Making of Indian Constitution. The Indian Constitution was drafted by the Constituent Assembly of India on 26 November 1949 and became effective on 26 January 1950. India celebrates its Constitution Day on 26 January as a republic. There are 104 amendments in Indian Constitution. The Indian Constitution was drafted by the Constituent Assembly. The 389 members took almost 3 years to draft the Indian Constitution. The Indian Constitution was second longest active constitution. Dr. Rajendra Prasad became President of Indian Constituent Assembly and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was chairman of its drafting committee. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was vice constitutional expert. He had studied the constitution of about 60 countries. He is also known as the father of the Indian Constitution. Features of Constitution. It laid down the limits on the powers of the government. It tells the rights of the citizens. Basically, the Constitution is important because it protects individual freedom. It contains a long list of fundamental rights of the citizens. It is rigid and flexible as it can be amended when required. Thank you.
The history of India is full of the stories of countless heroes and gallants. Their deeds and their contribution established India a great nation. Let's learn about their achievements in various fields. First, we have Dr. Homi Jahangir Bhabha. He was an Indian nuclear scientist who made important contributions to quantum theory and cosmic radiation. He is known as the father of Indian nuclear program. He was the first chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission of India. Second, we have Professor M.S. Swaminathan. The agricultural scientist of India played a key role in the introduction of high-yielding wheat varieties in a famine-plagued India. He was the principal scientist of the Green Revolution, who developed a strong good security in India. Third, we have Dada Saheb Phalke. We all like to watch movies of different genres, but do you know who is the father of Indian cinema? The answer is Dada Saheb Phalke. He introduced the people of India to the beauty of cinematic experience and evolved the largest entertainment industry in the world. The most prestigious award in the film industry is given on his name. Fourth, we have Vikram Sarabhai. He was a great science physicist and astronomer of India who initiated space research and helped to develop nuclear power in India. He is internationally regarded as the father of Indian space program. Fifth, last but not least, we have Dhyan Chand. As all of you know that India's national game is hockey, but do you know who is behind the screen to make this game so popular? Dhyan Chand. He was one of the greatest hockey players in the history of sport. He was known for his extraordinary goal-scoring feats. He is also known as the magician of hockey for his superb ball control.
Today we're gonna talk on the topic social challenges of India. India is the biggest democracy in the world, which has taken giant strides in the last few decades. But still we are lagging behind in numerous fields. Let's learn about these fields and support the government of India to the solution of these problems. So here are current major issues in India. Illiteracy. The percentage of illiteracy in India is alarming. There is a wide disparity between rural and urban areas and male and female population. The conditions in villages is worse than in cities. Basic sanitation. Sanitation is yet another problem, but one of the biggest in India. There are about 700 million people who have no access to toilets at home. Slum areas do not have toilets. People are thus forced to defecate in the open, which causes numerous diseases. Poverty. The population of India living below the poverty line. However, 80% of the poor in India live in villages. 43% of the poor belong to scheduled caste or scheduled tribe categories. Pollution. Pollution and environmental issues are the other challenges that India is facing at present. Though India is working hard, there is a long way to go. Degradation of land, depleting natural sources, and loss of biodiversity are the main issues of concern due to pollution. Women's safety. Both men and women enjoy equal opportunities, but as far as freedom and safety of women are concerned, India lags behind. Issues like domestic violence, rape, the portrayal of women in media, etc. must be tackled immediately. Unemployment. Unemployment nowadays is very common among the youth. This situation is also known as joblessness. Moreover, it is a set of circumstances where an able-bodied person is willingly searching for a job but is not able to find it. Agriculture distress. India is a country which is widely famous for its agriculture throughout the world, but the sad plight of farmers is really pitiable. This face to many problems, such as lack of basic amenities, of irrigation systems, agriculture implements, and short or long term.
A state government is the government of a country, subdivision in a federal form of government, which shares political power with the federal or national government. A state government may have some level of political autonomy or be subject to a direct control of the federal government. State government is divided into three parts: legislative, executive, and judiciary. Legislature, they make all laws, declares war, regulates interstate and foreign commerce, and controlling taxing and spending policies. It is divided into two parts: Legislative Assembly and Legislative Council. Legislative Assembly, it is the lower house and is commonly known as Vidhan Sabha. Is the popular house in the state legislature that represents the resident of the state. Members of Legislative Assembly are elected by the people directly through elections by the adult called as voters, according to the principle of universal adult franchising. Legislative Council, it is the upper house and is known as the Vidhan Parishad. It is a permanent house which is not directly elected by the people. 1/3 of the people of the Legislative Council retire after every 2 years. Executive. The executive is the part of government exercising authority in and holding responsibility for the governments of the state. The executive executes and enforces law. Judiciary. The judiciary is the system of courts that adjudicates legal disputes, disagreements, and interprets, defends, and applies the law in legal cases. There are three types of judicial courts in India: Supreme Court, High Court, District Court.
Hello everyone, I am Khushpreet Kaur of class 9th A. Today I am going to tell you about features of democracy. So, first of all, the question arises that what is a democracy? A democracy is a form of government in which rulers are elected by the citizens of the country. Now, the word democracy is derived from two Greek words, that is demos, which means people, and kratos, which means power or rule. Now, I am going to tell you about features of democracy. The first feature is major decisions are taken by elected ruler. In this feature of democracy, the major decision power must rest with the government, which is chosen by the citizens of the country. One person, one vote, and one value. In this feature of a democracy, each person of the country have the right to vote, and each vote has one value. The third one is rule for law and respect for rights. In this feature, the government must rule the country with the power and rules set by the constitution law. The fourth one is free and fair elections. In this feature of the democracy, there should be free and fair elections in which everyone has right to vote, and the government which is currently in power have fair chance of losing. There are many advantages. The democracy allows us to correct our own mistakes.
Good morning everyone. My topic is on major landforms of India. A landform is a natural geographic feature or shape that appears on the earth's surface. India has a variety of landforms. These landforms are considered as natural tourism development, and it has a lot of significance for tourism. Major landforms are mountain. A mountain is a large landform that rises above the surrounding land in limited area, usually in the form of peak. The mountains of India play a key role in forming the ecosystem of the country. Plains. A large, flat and low-lying land surface with few irregularities is known as plain. The plains of India are divided into three sections: Punjab Plains, Ganges Plains and Brahmaputra Plains. Indo-Gangetic Plains are the most important plain of India. A river. River is a long watercourse that flows down a slope along a channel. The rivers are the main source of irrigation, water supply, hydroelectric power generation, transportation, tourism. Waterfalls. Waterfall when water from a river or stream dropping from higher to lower points, sometimes from a great height, it is called a waterfall. Indian waterfalls are the best destination for trekking, bird watching, photography. Deserts. Deserts are extremely dry areas of land with sparse vegetation. Important desert destinations in India are Thar Desert, Green Run of Kutch. Mainly, camel is used for traveling from one place to another in these deserts. Islands. Islands are that are surrounded by water on all sides. Major islands of India are Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Lakshadweep Islands. Volcano. A volcano is a landform creating an event from where lava comes out from the earth crust. While the volcano is erupting, molten lava pushes the ground upward until it goes out from the volcano vent. Two famous volcanoes found in Andaman and Nicobar Islands are Narpadam and Beran Islands. A hill. A hill is a landform that is very simple to describe. It has sloped sides and India possesses beautiful areas in western and eastern Ghats along with eastern parts of India.
Water has no color, no taste, and no odor. Water is not necessary to life, rather, life itself. So today, me, Tejeshwar Singh Brar from class 7th A, Durham Millennium School, Bhatinda, is going to discuss uses of water. The uses of water start as we wake up in the morning. We use water to brush our teeth and take bath. We quench our thirst with water. Now here's my mom's picture using water to cook food. We wash the utensils with water. We use water to water the plants and irrigate the crops in the fields. We also use water to wash our clothes. Water is used in cleaning our floors. All the animals like humans use water to quench their thirst. Whereas some animals use water as their habitat. Water is used in industries and in hydroelectric power plants to produce electricity. Caring for water is caring for all. So save water, save life. Thank you.
I'm going to show you a working model on topic layers of atmosphere. So this is my model. Here it's the Earth's surface. So atmosphere is divided into 5 layers. Troposphere, the lowest layer, it extends up to a height of 15 km. Most of the mass of the atmosphere is in this layer. Stratosphere, it extends from 15 km to a height of 50 km. The ozone layer is present in this layer. Mesosphere, it extends from 50 km to a height of 80 km. The upper part of this layer is the coldest part of the atmosphere. Thermosphere, it extends from 80 km up to a height of 400 km. It is the hottest layer. Exosphere, it is the uppermost layer of the atmosphere. Beyond this layer lies the outer space. So, this was the structure of layers of atmosphere.
Today I am going to tell you about the types of rainfall. Rainfall. Precipitation takes in various forms. The most common form is rainfall. Rainfall can be classified into the following types: orographic rainfall, conventional rainfall, cyclonic or frontal rainfall. Here is a picture of a rainfall. Orographic or relief rainfall. When the moist relieving winds goes up and air cools and condenses the zone of evaporation, it starts falling rain. Conventional rainfall. When the warm air goes up and it condenses and form a cloud and then rainfall occurs, it is mostly happen in the Ghats region of India. Frontal of cyclonic rainfall. The sun heats the land and the air above it. Warm air rises, cool and condensing, falling to clouds, and then the rainfall occurs.
Today I will tell you about volcano. A volcano is a mountain that opens downwards to a pool of molten rock below the surface of the earth. When it erupts, rock material, magma, hot gases or ash comes out. Now I will tell you about material inside the volcano. It's a pipe, crater, lava, molten magma or vent, etc. Thank you.
Earth is made up of 3 layers: crust, mantle and core. Crust is divided into 2 parts: oceanic crust and the continental crust. Oceanic crust is 5 kilometers thick. It consists of silica and magnesium, also called sima. The continental crust is about 35 kilometers thick. It consists of silica and alumina, also called sial. The crust and the upper part of mantle form the layer lithosphere. It is about 100 kilometers thick.
As you can see, in layers of earth, 3 types of layers are there: crust, mantle and core. But today I will explain you about mantle. Mantle is about 2900 km thick and densest part of the earth, and it is divided into 2 layers: upper mantle and lower mantle. And it is made up of solid rocks, but some rocks are made up of molten called magma, and in this layer temperature is about 2000 degrees Celsius.
There are 3 layers of earth: core, mantle, crust. I will speak on core. This is core. It is the innermost layer of the earth and is about 2400 kilometers thick. It is composed of iron, nickel and sulfur. It consists of 2 layers, the outer core and the inner core. The liquid outer core surrounds the solid inner core. Outer core. The temperature in this layer is very high, between 4000 Celsius and 5000 Celsius. Due to such extreme heat, the minerals present in this layer are in liquid or molten form. Inner core. The temperature in this layer is as high as 5000 Celsius to 7000 Celsius. Added to this is the pressure from all sides, as it is the center. Therefore, iron and other metals cannot melt and the inner core remains solid in composition.
Today I, Harshi, will tell you about my model water cycle. The water cycle starts when water on the surface of the earth evaporates. Evaporation means the sun heats the water which turns into gas. Then water collects as the water vapor in these clouds. Next, the water in the clouds gets cold. This makes it becomes liquid again. This process is called condensation. Then the water falls from the sky as rain, snow, sleet or hail. This is called precipitation. The water sinks into the surface and also collects into lakes and oceans, etc. It evaporates again and continues this cycle. The water cycle is the cycle that water goes through on the earth. Water is essential for life. As we know, it is present throughout the solar system and was the part of the earth from its formation. The source of the water was the same as the source of the earth's rock, the cloud particles which condense in the origin of solar system.
Wow, incredible! Students really deserve applaud. There are several stunning historical monuments in India across the length and the breadth of the country. Aside from the rich heritage, culture and architecture, the land is decorated with many forts, places, archaeological ruins, temples and churches. Shivansh is going to throw some light on the famous monuments of our country.
Today I am here to tell you about the great Indian monuments that represent our rich and varied culture. The first one of the monuments is from one of the 7 wonders of the world, that is the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal was built by Shah Jahan in memory of his late wife Mumtaz Mahal in Agra. The construction of the Taj Mahal started in 1631 and ended in 1648. The Taj Mahal expanded the design traditions of the Indo-Islamic and earlier Mughal architecture. The next monument is the India Gate. The India Gate is a sandstone arch monument built in New Delhi, which is dedicated to the troops of British India that fought in wars between 1914 and 1919. It is located at the eastern end of the Rajpath highway, which was formerly known as the Kingsway. Its architect was Sir Edwin Lutyens and it was built in 1931. The next monument is the Red Fort. The Red Fort is a historic fort that served as the main residence of the Mughal emperors. It was commissioned in 1638 when Shah Jahan decided to move his capital from Agra to Delhi. The Red Fort is a monument of national significance, as every year on Independence Day, the Prime Minister hoists the country's flag at Red Fort. The next monument is the Golden Temple. The Golden Temple is a Gurudwara located in Amritsar, and it is a preeminent site of Sikhism. The most famous part of this monument is the Har Mandir or the Darbara Sahib, which is a beautiful golden structure located in between the sacred pond, the Amrit Sarovar.
Social science is not a common discipline of science which requires you to bury your minds with endless scientific formulas and tire yourself in mind-blocking experiments. It develops deeper into science of humankind and society and explores many branches such as law, political science, psychology, history and more. Let's dig more into the details of this subject through the detailed blog about branches of social sciences.
Hello everyone, myself Krishna Chahal from class 10th B. Let's know the branches of social science one by one. Anthropology. Anthropology encompasses the study of different aspects of the human condition and dig deep into society's cultural mores and human behavior. Anthropology has various subfields like cultural anthropology, linguistic anthropology, etc. One can be medical researcher, consultant, field investigator, anthropologist scientist, business anthropologist. History. It straddles into different territories of time and explore every aspect. Archaeologist, civil servant, museum curator, teacher, lecturer, professor, content writer, human resource officer. Archaeology. Archaeology encompasses the study of the material culture, the remains of the past. Archaeologist, professor, activist, historian, assistant archaeologist. Economics. Economics is all about distribution, stock trade, production, consumption. Working of financial institutions like banks, trade relation between countries and various states. Geography. Geography is one of the fundamental branches of social science. Some of the job opportunities you can explore in the field of geography are environmental consultant, geological officer, town planner, cartographer, conservation officer, landscape artist, hydrologist, meteorologist. Sociology. Undergraduates in this field can work in the profiles like researcher, human research manager, public research manager, rehabilitation counselor, office administrator, professor, lecturer, or a teacher. Political science. Political science emerged as a significant field of study focusing on different systems of governance. Here are some of the major careers in political science. policy analyst, public relations specialist, professor, researcher, and intelligence analyst. Psychology. Psychology dig deeper into the science and mind of human behavior. A career in this field opens of becoming a therapist, counselor, and a social worker. Corresponding to its wide range, these disciplines offer a whole landscape of career opportunities of a student. Thank you.
Hope this detailed blog regarding branches of social sciences has provided you with all the specializations you can explore in the vast stream of study. India is a land of rich culture and heritage. Since the beginning of our civilization, music, dance and drama have been integral aspect of our culture. India has various forms of dances including classical dances and folk dances. Let's enjoy few dance forms.
घर मोरे परदेसिया
Amanat, would like to thank our precious audience for sparing their time and motivating our friends. Keep supporting, keep encouraging. Thank you very much. Your valuable positive feedback is solicited. Goodbye.